in love.
Good afternoon and welcome back to Gulfstream Park. Thank you for joining us here on this Wednesday morning on Gulfstream Today. I'm Gabby Gaudette, joined by Acacia Courtney as always, and we're looking forward to a big week on tap. Of course, looking to the weekend, we've got 3 graded stakes races on tap, I believe 5 stakes in general on Saturday, as we're working our way towards a big January. Lots of things. We've got the Eclipse Awards coming up. We've got, of course, Pegasus World Cup coming up. So it's going to be a very busy month for all of us.
A very busy month for all of us here at Gulfstream Park, but of course we are so excited to be a part of it. And don't forget that tomorrow at 11:15, Gabby and I will be announcing the finalists for this year's Eclipse Awards. So really excited to look forward to that. And as you said, a busy January ahead, but certainly a fun one.
It was a big year if you kind of think back to the year, especially at Breeders' Cup. We were hoping for all of these potential matchups to happen, and they did between Arrogate, a California Chrome, and of course Beholder and Songbird as well. But we get to today's card here, Acacia, and we do have, we'll start things off with our wagering menu. We do have a couple of carryovers. We do kick it off in race 1 at rolling super high 5, that carryover just shy of $5,500. Of course, race 1 also does kick off the 50-cent early pick 5. You have a ticket for that. And as we look to later in the card, race 5 kicks off the Rainbow 6. That is continuing to grow, just over $14,000 in that. And race 6 kicks off the 50-cent late pick 5. You have a ticket for that as well. And we did have some heavy rain this morning, so currently the track conditions, they are good. We are on the turf and a sloppy sealed main track. And right now it's sunny. It's a little bit breezy, high humidity though. So if we can keep the sun out of the clouds, I think it would dry up pretty quickly, but it kind of looks like we might get rain later on this afternoon. So fingers crossed that can stay away, but as of now, those are your track conditions. But we have 10 races to talk about here, 12:35 p.m. first post, and we'll start it off with race 1 and take a look at your early pick 5.
Yes, we'll start with the early pick 5, and see, I did actually spread in this first race here. It does start on the turf, and again, that turf listed is good, but we did actually need some rain on the grass there, so probably a good thing, but couldn't leave off the number 6 horse Blase, though I did like a couple others in here. So spreading in the first race and then 2 deep in the remainder of the card. Loving Valentina does look to be the one to beat in the second race. It protectively used Bella's Legacy, and then 2 deep throughout. Again, $40 for that one. So trying to get through that first leg, not an easy maiden special weight to start it off.
It's not, and looking at both sequences, it is kind of difficult to find a single. I did find a single in the pick 6, which we'll get to later, but I don't know if I'm extremely confident about that one. But a very nice maiden special weight to kick things off, 5 furlongs on the turf. And the favorite in here and the horse to beat is the number 2, Crazy About Jazz, for Christophe Clement. Occasion, this is where you land.
This is where I landed, and I mentioned Blase, and you actually used that horse on top, but I thought it was pretty wide open. I did look and try to find a way to even beat Crazy About Jazz, but I just think there are a lot of things to like, and we do have a trainer stat on Christophe Clement in the past 5 years with turf sprints made in special weight at Gulfstream Park.
And he does well. He bats at about 22%. It is a negative ROI because he runs them in the right spots. They're coming out of really competitive races at Belmont, and people love to bet horses coming out of the NYRA circuits, whether it be Saratoga, Belmont, Aqueduct. The competition is strong up there, so kind of when they come down here, they're well backed by the betting public, and rightly so. But this filly, she could just be the best in terms of class, but where I thought that she was vulnerable was I didn't see a really nice kick in the late stages of it. When she debuted at 6 furlongs, she kind of just maintained an even pace, and even last time out at 7/8, and we saw Akron Gold, the winner of that race, she came back to finish pretty poorly against A Other Than Company last weekend. So that's where I thought she might be a bit vulnerable, but comparably speaking, her competition has been solid.
And that's why I did land on her, because she has been competing against some pretty good horses, and against Akron Gold last time out, both of them Christophe Clement trained. They were the two best fillies by far in the race, ahead of the rest of the field, so it is kind of difficult to go off of that. And she did finish third in her debut with having a little bit of a trouble trip. She didn't really have much running room, but I agree, I would have liked to see a little bit more kick. I think today she might show a little bit more speed, though. She does have the ability to show some early interest. Do like to see Javier Castellano in the saddle as well, and second off a bit of a layup with a little less distance.
And she has been pretty lightly raced for a 4-year-old filly. I guess all of these really have. Some of them aren't even making their first start until this year. But Blase, I thought, was an intriguing one. First of all, Tom Bush, his horses have been running very well. He had a nice victory last weekend at a big price. Johnny Velasquez is aboard this one. She looks like she's been working very well at Palm Meadows, clocking a couple of bullet workouts. And she also looks like one that might relish the cutback in distance. They immediately started her off at 7 furlongs, and they stretched her out to 2 turns on the turf at Aqueduct. So maybe this is one that could find herself stalking. The concern is she looks like she hasn't liked a turf with a little bit of give in it in her first 2 starts, and unfortunately that's what she gets today.
And that's why I was looking at her for a little bit, because I did think about throwing her on, trying to get back to a firm turf, but she will have to deal with a turf that is labeled good yet again today, and she's just, to be honest, finished terribly in her first 2 starts. So you do have to respect the connections, you respect the cutback and distance in the way that she's been working, so that is something to take into account. I took a little bit of a wait and see with her, but a horse that I have has not been lightly raced, but I have yet to give up on, and that's the number 7, Caffeine, who does have some speed. What I really like about this horse is that she's been running solidly at the maiden special weight distance, and even after 8 starts, they haven't dropped her down to maiden claiming yet. She's still at the maiden special weight level, which I do like. She was beaten by 3/4 of a length last time, going the 7.5. I think the 5 furlongs, it's much better for her, and she had a couple trouble trips at this distance prior to that.
And that's the thing, though. I actually liked her performance at 2 turns on the turf, because she found herself closer to the pace. She didn't have so much to do, whereas at 5 furlongs, she finds herself just having to be a closing sprinter, and sometimes it doesn't always work out so well. So I do respect her, because she has been running competitively against this level of competition, and she's got a good bottom underneath of her, especially to turn back. But I did kind of like her where she could utilize her speed a bit better at 2 turns. But I don't disagree in spreading in that race. The favorite is the horse to beat, obviously early money, making her 3-2, but she does have a little bit of vulnerabilities to her as we get to the open $16,000 condition, a flat mile, 1-turn mile on the main track. And we have 2 horses in here that will likely take money. The one, Loving Valentina, and the 5, Bella's Legacy. You opt for the latter one of those 2.
I did opt for Bella's Legacy, and this is a race that's just like, you look at a horse like Loving Valentina, who has 3 wins in a row. A surprise, honestly, for all 3 of them, for her to be able to be competitive like that. So you do question, does she get the 4th in a row? She's coming back in just 7 days. She's been competitive against this open company. I'm looking at the rest of the field. I can't blame you for going to a horse like Calidez, who I guess has fewer excuses. And you do have the number 5, Bella's Legacy, who was impressive last time out at the 7 furlong. She gets a little bit of a stretch out second time with the blinkers, but you do wonder, can she repeat that kind of performance?
Can she repeat it? Will she like even more distance? I actually think she will. Maybe she just responded well to the first time blinkers. She had a lot of adjustments kind of go on for the victory last time out. I did think that she met a pretty manageable field in there, and it's a pretty manageable field here as well, so she very well could get back-to-back victories. But we do have a negative stat here for Louis Duco with these types of wins last out. So a maiden winner last out on the dirt, coming back and repeating, only 7 for 91 and 8%. Now, when you get to these races, I guess you can't put a tremendous amount of stock, because you just have to make a decision, and you have to say, okay, is this horse going to improve? And if she repeats her last performance, she will blow the field away. I opted for the 2, Calidez. I'm trying to figure out how these Woodbine runners will perform.
It's been impossible, nearly.
It is, but at least this horse has a race underneath her belt, and I bet against her last time out. She was a decent price that day, but she was going into the race with actually only one workout over the main track, and then she ran, or excuse me, 2 workouts over the main track. And they were just okay workouts. But now that she has a good race underneath her belt, I hope and I think she can improve off that race.
And I certainly respect that opinion, and especially looking at how far back she was last time out, and that was her first time on conventional dirt. She stretches out now to the mile, and you do wonder if she'll be a bit closer. It looks like the break is actually her problem, even on the synthetic. She was always off a little bit slow, but she did get up and show some more early interest. Lane Luzzy stays in the saddle, and she stays right at this open $16,000 level, so she certainly has license to improve. Like I said, maybe the fewest amount of excuses in the field.
And you said she doesn't have a tremendous amount of early speed, but the distance, getting the mile today, will help her be closer to the pace. Loving Valentina, as she's quick turnaround. Last time we saw her on the 28th of December, and she's turning back around, trying to make it 4 for 4. I think you want to use this protectively, but maybe not have a total amount of confidence. We get to the 3rd race, though, Acacia, onto the main track of this maiden 12,500 event, and the 3 I'm Priceless, the speedy filly at 3-1 is where you land.
And that's why, because she's the speed in here. This is what I landed on. She finished behind Motions First last time out, and I just thought that she ran. She's been running pretty consistently in her last 3 races. She's consistently not been able to get to the winner's circle, even at this low level. So that is, of course, what you do question, but that's kind of the theme in this field. She was 3rd last time out, and I just thought that she'd be the one to hopefully get out and be ahead of the rest of the field.
And she could use that to her advantage, but the reason why I threw her out, and I probably shouldn't have been this aggressive with her because I just threw in 4th, and she has been consistent against this level. I thought that she was with the bias of the track last time out, whereas others coming out of that race were against it. It was a really good inside speed day, and that's exactly where she was, and she still started to head in the wrong direction coming down the stretch. So I found, I'll tell you, I've tried to look up so many stats in this race, and this is the one that I found and I landed on, and that's the 5 Heavenly Lucky for trainer Nick Zito. And I know it's kind of a smaller sample size, but he does well with these types of angles. Maiden claimers on the dirt, stretching out from sprints to routes at Gulfstream. 3 for 15, 20%, and they pay. So it's over a $4 ROI. And look, he's even finishing in the money 60% of the time. His horse is 9-2. You'll probably get around that. And she takes a big drop in class for maiden $20,000 types.
She does, and her only time running at the mile was on a muddy track. And honestly, her first 3 races in special weight company were pretty terrible. There's nothing really else to describe about it. She went to the maiden 20 level, going the 7 furlongs. She was wide in that race. I think with the cutback, the stretch out, excuse me, and the drop in class here, she definitely could be a live one. I did use her. I also used the other Nick Zito, to the rail Majestic Kindness, who's only had 1 race on the dirt, and that was last time out, where she did flatten a bit. She really had nothing in the stretch last time. That was going 1 mile and 70 yards at Parks. Again, it was her first time on the dirt, so I'm willing to be a little bit more forgiving, as the winner did lead pretty much the whole way that time. And so I am going to use both of the Nick Zito horses in here, who again are trying to move forward. I just thought Majestic Kindness had a little bit of a better finish than Heavenly Lucky did in her 4 races.
And we have we're all over the map in this race, which it just tells you that you can go with several different options, and potentially this might be a race to use several horses. And even the 9, You're My Destiny, I throw into the Exacta, who should be the speed, I think. She might even be faster than the 3 I'm Priceless to the inside, just because she is stretching out from those sprint distances. And first 2 races, she was pretty quick on the front end. So an interesting race there. In the 3rd, as we get to the 4th, a maiden $50,000 race going the mile onto the turf. And once again, all over the map for this one, the one Pert is the one that you pick on top for Brian Lynch.
And this is where I landed. The number 3 Fawn Mora for Christophe Clement certainly does promise to take a lot of attention, but I did go to the rail. Now, my biggest question is about the distance here. She's cutting back after finding a soft track last time out at Aqueduct. She's kind of been an interesting one. It looks like they don't really know what distance she wants wants to run at or where they want to run her. In her debut, she went 6.5 furlongs on the turf at Woodbine, then went 7 furlongs on the synthetic, then stretched out to the mile and 16th on the turf last time. She was not sharp breaking from the outside last time at all, but she did show a lot more speed sprinting. So that's why I do like a little bit of the cutback here to the mile. She still has to go the 2 turns here. I wonder if she will show speed from the rail. So I think that there are a lot of questions about her. I just did like her 2 earlier races.
And one of them being on the turf at Woodbine, another one being on the synthetic at Woodbine. And her last race, she didn't show up very well. That was on a soft turf. But a lot of time we say that a horse who doesn't like a soft turf at Aqueduct or maybe Keeneland or somewhere else, it doesn't always apply all the time in South Florida. It's just like a horse who likes a South Florida turf versus who prefers a course like Keeneland. So, but that might be a little bit of a concern to maybe apply to your handicapping when looking at this race, as the turf is listed as good, and we might expect some rain later on today. The 3 Fawn Mora, though, we will take a look at her last performance, and this was finally dropping to that maiden claiming level against maiden $50,000 types here locally. She was given Lasix for the first time that day too.
And she was, and they had tried an experiment putting the blinkers on 2 starts back where she just looks kind of green too. She dropped to the claiming level last time. She broke to the outside a bit wide early, trying to show some speed. The winner was the number 12, so it was a winner on the outside as well, so you can't even acknowledge that. They were certainly the 2 best. She showed some tenacity in the stretch. You did have some horses closing behind, but I think she's drawn better to show a bit more speed here, so she does have a little bit of excuses last time, and maybe she will improve with the second time Lasix.
And I can remember going back and watching the replay at Monmouth, and she was extremely keen with the blinkers on, and it was really hard for the rider to get her to settle that day, and that kind of went into my handicapping of her last race with that way outside post position. If she didn't respond to the rider, she could have blown the turn. And she actually responded to the rider quite nicely, but unfortunately Tyler Gaffleone just could not save ground. There were 4 horses to his inside. She was parked 5 wide going into the turn, and she made the lead a little early and then was bumped. So off of that performance, I think you should respect her because she did run her race, and she showed that she can behave herself a little bit. She doesn't have to be so keen. But I found an interesting stat here on the 7 Antonetta. First off the claim for Reed Nagel, which will show. First off the claim on the turf with maidens. 6 for 19, 32%, positive ROI of over $5, 37% in the money. And she actually hasn't been running bad races. She did drop and lose against maiden $30,000 company, but Reed Nagel's about 22% on the year. She's coming from a 10% trainer and connections to this positive trainer switch, and considering I kind of looked at some of the claims that he's done before, and he's been successful with this move, claiming maidens, stepping them up to the maiden special weight level.
He has, and Queen de Valet comes to mind, who was pretty impressive on the turf this summer after Reed Nagel claimed her. And he does have very good stats. That is something to take into mind and something that you do have to respect for this horse. And you mentioned we're kind of all over the place, and maybe that's just the kind of race that this is. We both did pick against Fawn Mora. I had some interest in the number 6 Requesting for Eddie Keneally, who is dropping to the claiming level for the first time. Had a good turf last time out, was wide early and didn't really get the spot that she would have liked. So I'm giving her a little bit of an excuse there. I do like her in this spot, and she's been working well in the Palm Meadows turf course as well.
And sometimes you just got to go with connections. Mike Maker, Julian Leperoux, the number 10, Tis the Kitten, drops down from restricted maiden special weight company to this spot here today, and took some interesting money last time out too, was bet down to the favorite. So I thought this one might be enticing if you get those as advertised double-digit odds at 10-1. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we will try to tackle the 20-cent Rainbow 6 and the late pick 5. We'll be back shortly.
January 28th at Gulfstream Park, an icon takes flight. The world's richest thoroughbred horse race. 12 of the sport's finest horses. One race. $12 million on the line. Watch, wager, witness. Go to PegasusWorldCup.com for more.
Welcome back to Gulfstream today. Gabby Gaudette joined by Acacia Courtney, and race 5 on today's card kicks off the 20-cent Rainbow Six, and we have a carryover over $14,000 in that. So I did take a stab at it and trying to keep my ticket a little bit more on the affordable side. And I actually constructed a ticket that was over $60 at first. I didn't have a single, and then I took an aggressive approach because I wanted to use other horses in a maiden special weight later on in the sequence. So I'm going to be keying off of Santifica in the 6th race. It is a turf sprint, 5 furlongs on the turf there, but I do think that she comes out of very good races, and she's got some recency. She comes out of a stakes race at Tampa. So other than that, using 3 horses, skipping over the 6th here, going 3 by 3 by 3 by 3 for $48.60. So I thought this race was pretty difficult. I could have even used more. Initially, I wanted to use 4, but we're left with this at 7.5 furlongs on the turf for the $16,000 non-winners of 3 lifetime condition. And let's start off with the number 3, Imperial Warrior, and go back to this gelding's last performance.
We'll show this performance, and this was a very good race by this horse in here. Rated perfectly, kind of kept to business, I guess was the comment. The number 2 that day did manage to get the win after a couple of solid finishes and in the money performances after cutting back to the 7.5 furlongs that day. And there was no catching this horse out of price, a little bit of a price anyway, at 5-1. Louis Sayas in the saddle today, and he's coming back in just 7 days, which of course is a little bit of the question here. But I did look up stats on Antonio Sano with horses that won last time out, coming back in 1 to 7 days. He's about 43% win, 57% of the time in the money, and a 494 ROI. So people might ignore horses that are coming back so quickly from his barn, but he does do quick turnarounds pretty often. His horses are ready to go right away, and we have seen horses that win and then are able to keep that momentum going. So I thought that this was kind of a wide open race, so I respect you for taking the aggressive approach with your single in the next, and thought I'd put this one right on top in here.
Okay, and I agree. I mean, he did run a very good race last time out. I thought Antonio Gallardo gave this horse a beautiful trip, just kind of stalking off of the leaders and just kind of going on from there. That was the non-winners of 2 lifetime condition, and it took that horse a couple of starts to finally notch the non-winners of 2. So that was my concern, was can he come back and take the non-winners of 3 with a field that some horses are dropping, a lot of are just making lateral moves, but that horse will be a price, which is one that you probably want to pay attention to. I think Jose Lezcano has been riding lights out on the turf as of late, and that's where I land. That's what gives me a little bit more confidence with the number 9 Starship Mars for Stephen Dwoskin. And it's always a concern sometimes that closing sprinters can be mistaken for horses that will prefer 2 turns. I hope I'm on the right side of this guess, but I do think that it does set up for her with all of the presence of speed in here.
And that was why I did pass on this horse. I circled him and then ended up crossing him off. You do have to respect Jose Lezcano on the turf for sure. He didn't break sharply last time out on the good turf, going 5 furlongs. He's never gone the 2 turns before, and I watched a bunch of his races and decided I wanted to watch him once going a bit long. He is just a closing sprinter that doesn't necessarily want to go a bit longer. But a horse that does promise to take a little bit of attention is the number 5, Shake Things Up, who came off of an 11-month layoff, first in the barn of George Navarro last time out, who does have the speed, and he was pressed early last time, and he did finish 5th, but I thought it was actually an okay performance. He has Nick Juarez in the saddle today. He was pretty sharp works for his return as well.
And he does have speed, and maybe that will build some confidence and a good bottom underneath of him last time out, as he did get pressured. But I would say that the 7 duffel bag's pretty quick in his own right, so I think he might unfortunately get tangled up in a speed duel. But the 6 McFly is another horse who has speed, and unsuccessfully they tried to take him back from off the pace last time out. This horse needs to go. Whether or not he gets tangled up with other horses, a lot of the time we see Julien Leparoux ride horses that have speed on the turf very, very well. So that was another feather in the cap, and we'll see this statistic for trainer Ronnie Warner. And mind you, this horse is 12-1, so this just might be a horse you want to throw onto the pick 6. Third off the layoff on the turf at this claiming level. 5 for 15, 33%, and a positive ROI. So they kind of need a race under their belt, and then they build upon that race by race by race. And that's what I kind of see from McFly. But there is the presence of a lot of speed in here.
There's a lot of speed in this race, which did lead me to put McFly a little bit further down in the superfecta. But I totally agree with you. He didn't like being off the pace last time. He needs to go out to the front.
Let McFly fly, as they say. We
like
get
it.
to the 6th race on the card to kick off the final pick 5 of the day. 5 furlongs for this allowance optional claiming event. Very nice race today, and it does kick off the late pick 5. Let's see your ticket.
Kick off the late pick 5. I know that this was the race that you singled in. I was not so bold. I went 3 deep in here using Smoke Signals and Elegant Supermodel along with Scientifica. 4 deep in the 7th race, which honestly, if you have the funds, you could almost press all in that race. That is, I think, a race to use quite a few horses in, quite a few with a shot, and then 2 in the 8th. My single will come, again, it's not one that I'm incredibly confident in because he does have that far outside post, but I think that Bama Bound is just sitting on another good performance here for George Navarro, and then 3 deep in the finale for $36.
Okay, Elegant Supermodel is coming in off of a bit of a layoff here for Alan Goldberg, but we'll go and take a look at her performance in the Stormy Blues. That's when she was actually running stateside for the first time, off of just about a year layoff.
Off of a year layoff, and this was when she was sprinting on the turf, which is why I wanted to show it. She had been running in Great Britain and France prior to that. She's actually Group 3 placed 3rd in the Group 3 Albany Royal Ascot, and I thought that she rallied. She didn't change leads here, but she was very wide before she corrected a bit in the stretch, and she rallied pretty nicely in that performance. Again, that was her first one stateside. She was beaten only a length. They stretched her out to a mile the next time in the Wild Applause, and she was drawn outside in there as well, and she was running against excellent company in that race, but she didn't seem to like going the mile. They put her on the shelf again, so she's coming back, but she's been working very steadily, and I like her a lot better sprinting.
Sprinting is definitely better. I do think she might have been outclassed in the Wild Applause. It was just a good race. We saw Ancient Secret come back to win the Lake George over the summer. So that is something to consider. And even in the Stormy Blues, she was tactically up against it because Coco, as in Chanel, she went wire to wire on a day that really did prefer or favor speed. So I would say that those are positives for her, and will show a trainer stat for Alan Goldberg. And if I were to use 2 horses, she would definitely be the second one. With these types of layoffs, 180 plus days on the turf, sprinting, good stats, 24%, just shy of a positive ROI, but he wins with these horses. He finishes in the money with them. So this one is probably one to respect. I just preferred another one in here in the 6th, Scientifica. Javier Castellano, he's hasn't been Javier is coming back for the first day in a couple of weeks here. But Christophe Clement, this is second off the layoff. She comes out of Stakes Company. She's just maintained a really consistent campaign for the past year or so. And I think that she's kind of the proven commodity, so to speak.
She certainly is, and she has a win on the Gulfstream Park turf course. And her last 2 races were number-wise very solidly, both in stakes action, but she is facing several horses in here who have performed well in Stakes Company, or just performed well in stakes level company anyway, horses that are stakes winners. So I think if you look back at the Smart and Fancy, it was a 6-horse field. She finished 4th in that race, but she's got some early speed, which I do hope that she employs some more of today, and she definitely is one to use. She came off and tried the Lightning City last time out off of about a 4-month layoff at Tampa, so she's coming back over here. She is a proven commodity, but I did want to see a little bit more from her.
And I think that's right, because she just needs to show more speed. She is more effective when she can get a little bit closer to the pace, and that's why I really like the presence of Javier Castellano in the saddle today. I think that might be the defining factor. The 4 Smoke Signals is one you use as well for Arnaud Delacour, and the thing that I especially like about her today is that she has proven in the past here locally at Gulfstream that she can handle a turf with a little bit of give in it.
She certainly can, and that's definitely a positive. We did see her win on a good turf going 5 furlongs back in January right here at Gulfstream. And she's coming out of, I think, a couple pretty solid races at a huge price 2 starts back. She was 3rd in the Grade 3 Buffalo Trace Franklin County at Keeneland, and she kind of weaved through in there again, keeping some good company. Fair Point went on to win the Grade 3 Senator Ken Maddie next time out, so keeping good company. Then last time out, there were very fast fractions, and she did kind of weaken a little bit. I don't know if they're going to be so fast today.
Yeah, definitely a fast half there, 43 and change. We get to the 7th race on the card, maiden special weight, 5.5 furlongs there onto the main track, and we have the presence of the 5 Malagasy, first-time starter for trainer Todd Pletcher. Always dangerous with his 3 or 2-year-old debuters down here in South Florida.
Always dangerous. And I landed on a first-time starter in here because, I'll be honest, I didn't entirely trust the other 2 horses that have experience with the one Infusion, who you did land on and does have some speed, Freddie Plesa Jr., or the number 8 Lenstar for Nick Zito, both of whom look to, again, have some speed and be kind of the proven commodity if you win. I just didn't know if I trusted either of them, so I did go with a first-time starter in Malagasy for Todd Pletcher, who does have 2 in here. This is a 3-year-old by Shackelford, a nice work top at Palm Beach Downs. Javier Castellano in the saddle. I don't know if you'll get the greatest price. I don't know how clever a pick it is, but again, not too much trust for the others.
And I don't know how I feel about this horse, and that's why I try to go against him, because unless I feel very confidently about a Todd Pletcher first-time starter, I try to go against them because they're usually so heavily bet. He's by Shackelford, but he's out of an unraced mare. He's not related to anything special, and the one thing that I remember about this horse, he was actually entered in for a maiden claiming race back in mid-December, I think on December 16th, and he was scratched that day, and now they brought him back, and they're running him against Maiden Special Weight Company. That could be seen as a positive, or it could be seen as a negative, so I'm not so sure. That's where I kind of liked a horse that has a race underneath his belt, and I thought he ran very well. This is the one Infusion. He looked a little bit keyed up, a little keen in that race too, so it looks like he might have a propensity to get a little hot. So I think the thing to do with him is just send him out of the gate and let him go under Paco Lopez, who's very good with kind of getting into position out of the gate. But you liked the 8 Lenstar in here for Nick Zito. We'll show that spotlight replay from Churchill.
He's another one that does have some speed, so we will show this one. And they went pretty quick for this race as well. They went 21 and 4 for the opening quarter in here. Kind of tripped a little bit off balance at the break, but still did show some speed. Was the number 7 that day and was far ahead of the rest of the field and was run down on the wrong lead. He did have an apprentice aboard that day, gets Nick Juarez aboard here, and I don't think he's going to be so far ahead of the rest of the field like he was in that race where he did end up getting run down. He's had 4 starts so far. They added the blinkers on last time. He was the favorite. He finished a distant second again as he was run down in the stretch, so hopefully he employs that speed but doesn't have to run so fast ahead of the rest of the field.
And that's what you get from, and no knock against Katie Clausen because I think she's been doing a great job, but you go from a 10-pound apprentice to a seasoned rider who is well-versed here in South Florida, Nick Juarez, and just being able to harness that early speed a little bit better. But I do think that the blinkers on made him focus a bit better, and overall, watching that replay, looking at horses who exited that race, including the winner, came back to finish second in a stake race at Aqueduct. This is why I restructured my Pick 6 ticket to include this horse, because I think he could definitely, he's actually has the upper hand from the outside if we're talking about speed, right, with the 1. So an interesting race. That is a maiden special weight. Some really nice first-time starters in there too. We get to the non-winners of 3 lifetime for race 8, a $16,000 purchase price here, 7.5 furlongs on the turf, and you land on a big price here, the 5. So Royal.
I landed on the number 6, actually, Sunset Knoll. That should be the top selection there. That still picks for race number 7. So race number 8, the number 6, Sunset Knoll, will be my top selection in here for Armando de la Cerda, who does have some speed as well. If we could go back and show the last race on the turf for this horse, we have the replay from September 14th at Belmont. Did have a race taken off of the turf last time out and still ran okay in there. This horse, she has some speed. She was the number 9 that day. She was, again, kind of similar to what I was just talking about with Lenstar. She was way ahead of the rest of the field, and she does get passed in the stretch. And so she's another one that was keeping some good company, but I do like her better on the turf. She finished 3rd that day. Again, it taken off last time and does get a little bit of class relief. And Armando de la Cerda has been doing some excellent work with horses coming to South Florida in his barn.
He absolutely has. I've always thought Armando de la Cerda does a great job with all of his horses, and this could be a perfect distance for her too. Just a little bit shorter, definitely turf. I did land on another horse that I thought you might get a decent price on, and that is the number 7, Tiz the Fast Lane. For Tony Dutrow. And last time out, I think, she was a little bit outclassed. She's 0 for 7 on the dirt. It was on the inner. Some horses love or hate it. I just went in a different approach. I think you have to overlook that last race and go back to her turf performances. And she will be overlooked at the windows because of that last race. Her form's a little bit dirtied up, which I like. But a big performance, a runaway victory at the Meadowlands 2 starts back. And even prior to that, experience at 2 turns 7.5 furlongs at Delaware. So the question is she good enough? But I'm willing to take a shot at a horse that might be a decent price. Absolutely.
And if you go back, she ran that impressive race with some speed at the 16 non-winners of 2 at the Meadowlands. So she's at the 16 non-winners of 3. She's actually 8-1 in the morning line. So you could get a little bit of a price on her too. I agree with you. I think she's a must-use in here. Had a little bit of interest in the number 9 Celtic Embrace. If we do have a couple other horses, including the number 2 Miss World Venezuela, to show some more speed, one to come from off the pace in Celtic Embrace.
All right, let's turn our attention to the 9th race, 7 furlongs on the main track for this open 6250 claimer. And Acacia, this is where your single comes into play. I can't blame you for trying to play on a limited bankroll. The number 11, Bama Bound, first off the claim for George Navarro.
First off the claim for George Navarro. We've said it so many times how well he does first off the claim. And this horse had been in excellent form in the barn of Jason Service at Monmouth. And then a little bit of a disappointing second behind Ravello's Boy, who's been in excellent form since too, so nothing knocking there. And then came back and won. Paco Lopez has been the regular rider for this horse both at Monmouth and here. I like to see him in the saddle once again.
Okay, and the 6th, Little Awesome, was a horse who had a little bit of early speed, and I don't know if he can actually win at this particular distance. He has tried it twice before and hasn't managed to have success, but he has speed. And I played this race and thinking, okay, you respect the favorite in here. If a pace scenario does actually happen in front, he'll be part of it, and that's not going to be a good thing for that horse. So why not back yourself up with a nice long shot who is slow, but getting this distance for the first time and is a closer with the 4 Nuke. So I just use the top 3 in here in terms of the pick 6.
I think that's a fair game plan for that race, as well as you will definitely have a short price on Bama Bound.
Let's get to the 10th race, an open $25,000 claiming event, 7.5 furlongs. Onto the turf, and the one Sir Sebastian was where you land to the inside.
And here's another race that we're all over the place, and Sir Sebastian, again, probably one to not be the biggest price in here, but this one showed quite a bit of speed and even actually did re-break at the 3/16 pole last time out on the turf. And I admit I had some reservations about this horse on the turf, but he's been pretty excellent on the turf, actually. I like the way that he's been working, even with the barn change. Stays at this level, and I think this is where he belongs.
And that was the thing for me, was that was an explosive victory at Gulfstream Park West last time out, but that was under Marcial Navarro's conditioning. We haven't seen him since mid-October, and now the barn switch and an inside post with speed, there's a potential that he could get pressure to the outside. So the 2 Midway Playa for Eric Guillot, I thought he ran an okay race, enough to maybe suggest that he can face this level of competition. and just be okay. I liked how he actually responded to Paco Lopez last time out early. He kind of responded nicely to Paco, trying to rate him a little bit. And on the cutback, I do like him slightly here, or staying at the same distance at 7.5 furlongs. So he's one that I think you can have interest in, but I don't think you can have a lot of confidence in anyone in here.
No, but if you want a horse coming from off the pace, we do have a quick spotlight to show of the number 4, Crown Lake. This one had a very impressive performance last time out at Gulfstream, is second on the turf for trainer Milt Wolfson. He's the number 2 that day. I love to see that Javier Castellano climbs aboard today. I love to see off of that performance last time that the third place finisher Giant's Voice did come back to win next time out with a 60 buyer speed figure for Todd Fletcher, and he's wide there and he just closes impressively. I don't know if he's going to be able to close like that again, but if you do have a little bit of some pressure down the outside with Sir Sebastian, this could be a horse to come from off the pace.
And that's a positive and the negative, is that will he get the same type of setup today? I thought he did get a setup in his last start. There was a 3-way duel, and they all kind of finished in the bottom half of the field. So the pace did collapse in front of him. That said, he proved himself on the turf at the same distance locally, so he there's at least a consistency to him for Crown Lake in there. But that is a wrap for us. 10 races on tap. We have that Pick 6 carryover over $14,000, and we have that Super High 5 carryover that starts in race 1, as well as the early Pick 5. So thank you for joining us here on Gulfstream today, and best of luck on today's program.